Happy spooky season, everybody. Already the fall is upon us. And where did all those summer movies go? Well, I'll tell you where they went. Mostly down the drain. That's not entirely true. We actually had a bunch of movies this year that were massive box office successes. But I don't know about you. I did not find myself super satisfied at the movies this year. No, don't get me wrong. I had fun. There was some joy to be had, there was some interesting moments. But overall, I would say that there was not a single movie this summer that blew me away. And yet I feel like I just keep hearing that there's so much praise to be reaped upon all these movies that we experienced this summer. So happy Friday, everybody. Hopefully you got some time to relax here. We're going to be slugging a few back. So drink them if you got them, smoke them if you got them, if that's your prerogative. And we're going to go back through the summer movies that we watched this year on this channel, but haven't quite done a review on. So we're just going to kind of cover it, see what we thought about it, see if we can actually remember what the hell happened in them, and close out the summer right here by just kind of revisiting everything that deserves to be revisited. Starting off here, I actually wanted to revisit a movie that, to be quite frank with you, was actually a little bit surprising in Civil War. Civil War held a lot of promise. Certainly an interesting concept, right? You watch the trailer and you see something cool like this. You go, oh my God, the New People's Army, Western forces in Texas, the Loyalists in the center, and Florida Alliance. Well, that sounds really cool. 4 different sides. What sides are they on? Who's aligned with who? Who's going to win? Well, let me tell you, people, spoiler alert here, you never find out. This was probably my biggest disappointment with Civil War overall. You've got this really cool setup that the United States is falling apart, and all we get is this Western forces loyalist conflict. Now, Civil War is about a Trump-esque president staying in term for more than 3 years and running amok. We don't exactly know what he's done to deserve the turmoil and hatred that has proceeded in the wake of his presidency. But the point is, we're supposed to believe he is quite evil indeed. And the movie primarily revolves around a team of reporters on a little adventure to go and kind of document the big change that's about to happen in America. The thing I liked about this movie, the thing I really, really liked about this movie is when you first get into it, you don't know if this movie's for libs or for the right. You can kind of tell it's a little bit for libs, but you go into it and you think, interesting. Conflict in America. I think this movie's going to have some interesting things to say about conflict and civil war in countries. But as you get into it, you mostly start to focus on the main characters, Kirsten Dunst, who you can tell is a smoker. Uh, what I like to call the replacement for Ellen Page, now known as Elliot Page. This is our new Ellen Page. My people I brought this up with do not agree with this, but what do you think? I think she kind of looks like Ellen Page. I think she's the replacement for Ellen Page in movies. Of course, we also had Mentat. He's another character that's kind of going along for the ride with the reporting, old grizzled reporter here, and the Pedro Pascal wannabe behind Kirsten Dunst here. So these four go on their little adventure to go and watch the downfall of the United States. Now, again, I'll go back to this infographic of the different factions here because if you're not going to include the New People's Army or the Florida Alliance, which again, spoiler alert, they're not in the movie at all. Why put them on this map? I genuinely question this choice. Why go ahead and put this on the map if you're not going to include those sides? There's not even like a momentary conflicting moment where the Western forces that, again, the reporters are with for the most part, the whole movie, there's not even like a conflicting moment where they're like held up and they need to deal with like the Florida Alliance in order to get through. And they're like, hey, we know we're not exactly on the same side, but we both want to overthrow the loyalists. So, let's work together. No, they're just not featured in it at all. So again, it's less of a criticism and more of just I think a missed opportunity to really kind of dig in. I said to my buddy when we watched this movie, this is one of the rare moments where I actually think I'd be willing to maybe dedicate more time to this story than just a movie. A lot of times you watch a TV series and you go, man, maybe if that was a movie, I might have even enjoyed it more. It would have taken up less time. I mean, who doesn't like more story for less time? But this was an example where I would definitely say I would have actually gone for maybe a mini series or even like several seasons spaced out of Civil War versus just a movie cram packed. Because again, at the end of the day, it just didn't have that impact for me. I get the message they were going for and how, imagine these civil wars and this conflict between people that takes place. And imagine if it happened in the United States, what would that be like? Again, you can kind of see it here. There's all kinds of cryptic symbolism. You got things like kind of like the Proud Boys symbolism with like the Hawaiian shirts and everything like that. But my point being that it's not fully realized, man. Like they've got all these little symbols and all these little moments in there, but it never comes together. Again, plot wise, I thought it was kind of wild watching like the assault on Washington D.C., the assassination of the president, and Offerman begging for his life while Kirsten Dunst gets gunned down and just totally ran over and oh, this brings me to another. So, Kirsten Dunst gets all run down and, kind of have that cold hearted ending. For me, I almost even maybe would have appreciated it more if there was a subversion of your expectations and Kirsten Dunst lived and the younger chick, Kaylee Spaney. I don't know. I think that's how you say her name. I like her a lot. Despite the fact that I didn't love the two movies I've seen her in this summer, I do really like her a lot. I actually think she's got a lot of talent. But I thought it would have been interesting subversion expectations if like Kirsten Dunst had lived and she had died, and you'd had this whole message of war sucks. It takes the youngest and most valuable amongst us, uses them up, and wastes them. But that's just me. Decide for yourself. Very interesting. The side characters in this movie, the sniper scene, I thought was like a real standout. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you didn't see the trailer, you know what I'm talking about. You've got like the scene with these snipers who are just kind of pinned down with this other sniper of an opposing force coming after them, and it's genuinely one of the best scenes of the movie. And of course, the Jesse Plemons scene, who is married to Kirsten Dunst, which is apparently how he got this role in the first place. We're not hating, we're just pointing it out. Jesse Plemons, good job, man. This scene was pretty solid, man. This guy's pretty interesting in everything he's in. It's always kind of the same, but you know what you're gonna get with him, man. But that's my overall point here. The side characters in Civil War were really the most interesting, which is why maybe this story would have benefited from being more of like a mini series than say like an outright movie. Very interesting for it to come out around this time with everything going on in America. The other thing I'll point out real quick before we move on that really bothered me about this movie is the fact that there was all this viral marketing with all these posters and stuff like this, the Statue of Liberty covered in guns and sandbags to protect them from enemy fire. There is no such New York battle scene or anything like that. They lie to us. And I don't know about you, but to me, that's not exactly cool that there's all this advertising, big battle in New York. I mean, God, even this scene is like, yeah, I guess you kind of, yeah, again, battle in New York. They make it seem like there's going to be a big old battle in New York. So, shame on you, Civil War, for not having enough trust in yourself. Let's talk about Monkey Man. Now, I'll be totally honest. I don't remember this movie super well. It came out back in April, I believe. Dev Patel and Jordan Peele working together. This is another movie that, unlike Civil War, where I went to go see it and largely was mostly disappointed in it because, besides, again, a couple of those side scenes that were at least a little bit interesting, I go to see Monkey Man, man, and it's like, what the hell am I viewing here? Besides the fact that the story was a little bit muddled, you gotta kind of know your Hindu lore to really be able to follow the whole thing in completion. The biggest criticism I had for it was this movie was a big time John Wick wannabe. I mean, it really is like a very like Bollywood John Wick style movie where this dude has this horrible experience as a child. It deeply shapes who he is as a person. He goes on this like crazy adventure to get his revenge. And as he climbs through the ranks and everything, he eventually kind of, he finds his way to kind of have his revenge. Then it ends up getting thwarted, which it was a pretty solid, little shift in the story from a whole storytelling perspective. But you know, and I'll applaud them for this. They go, you know what? We don't care that woke is going out of fashion. We're gonna have the main character get trained by the trans community in India, and they're gonna teach him how to fight. So that was something that happened in this movie. Biggest criticism, speaking of the trans community in this movie, he's like a trained and like excellent fighter. He even like throws a fight on purpose early on in the movie in order to get money. But then like later on in the movie, he's like, maybe because he lost to like the dude he tries to assassinate and fails at, he like all of a sudden sucks at fighting. So the trans leader teaches him how to fight again. I just didn't understand why he lost his ability to fight. That's literally all. I was like, what? What's going on with that? I don't know. We'll find out. No, we didn't find out. It was just kind of magical, and then they moved on. The other thing I didn't really get about this movie, he gets his fighting ability back thanks to the trans people, goes and fights, places a bunch of money on himself, wins that money when he wins, and then proceeds to take on the boss like enemy gangsters in his city, and his trans friends here join him, and everybody dies. Spoiler alert, everybody dies in this final fight scene, and you're like, huh, so you raised all that money for them and they're all dead? What's the point of that? Maybe I need to see it again to fully grasp that, but in my opinion, Monkey Man, skip it. I didn't even tell you what to do with Civil War. You know what? Civil War is one of those movies where if it's on TNT for free and you're stuck on Thanksgiving at your in-laws and it's just on, pay 80% attention to it. You won't miss much with an occasional scene or two, but absolutely worth 80% attention. Moving on to a movie that I actually kind of enjoyed, Furiosa, starring Chris Hemsworth and Anya Taylor-Joy. Now, I will admit, I have not been an Anya Taylor-Joy enjoyer. I'm one of those people who didn't like the menu. It's not bad or anything. I just wasn't wowed by it. It wasn't anything special, in my opinion. I never saw the chess show that she was in. I like the little trailer we saw of her in Dune as Alia. I think that that's a pretty good casting. But I gotta say, here in Furiosa, I enjoyed Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth for that matter. So, as you probably know, we got a little prequel to Mad Max on our hands. And I would say that this is probably the first movie we're addressing in the little summer recap here. It speaks to the unfortunate theme we have with movies this year, this summer anyway, which is unnecessary, for the most part, sequels, but in this case, prequels that nobody asked for. Now, with most of these movies, as is the case with Furiosa, this is a movie that doesn't offend. It's fine. You can watch it, enjoy it. Maybe there's some gripes to be had. It's certainly not as good as the original, but you can't help but think to yourself, nobody asked for this movie. So why does it exist? Well, a lack of ideas in Hollywood and strained budgeting. Now, what I will say is, again, Anya Taylor-Joy, very good in the role as Furiosa. She doesn't even come into the movie until like the second act. The little girl who plays her in the beginning of it is pretty good. You've got a really solid transformation of her into, this character of Furiosa, as you can see with her rubbing oil on her forehead. That's supposed to symbolize that she's changing as a person. And Chris Hemsworth is a legitimately enjoyable villain. I actually kind of enjoyed him as the villain in this movie, despite how stupid and ridiculous he is. Now, he does start off a little bit more like multifaceted than he ends up being. And I don't know if that's just like a put on for the audience. You're supposed to have some idea of him, maybe from like Furiosa's perspective of being a kid, and it's a little bit higher than what it should be. But I don't know. To me, the fact that they kind of turn him into a clown later in the movie just didn't really pan out. The best part of this movie is, of course, this guy getting shot in the head with an arrow. Now, if you know the internet, you know that this poor guy, man, he got bullied a couple of years ago. He was like the target of online harassment, but he's also said the N word for clout online. So people don't really know what to make of this dude. Is he just out for clout? Is he a poor, innocent, bullied kid? Is he 42? Is he 12? Nobody knows. Pick your own side. Just like, we were talking about a little bit ago with Civil War. Pick your own side. But my favorite part again of the movie was watching this dude get his little cameo, war boy out, and get shot in the head with an arrow. That was actually really a pretty sweet scene. Overall, man, I enjoyed dude, this guy's name is like James or something real basic like that. I swear I honestly don't remember. It was John or James or something like that. But like given Furiosa her little love story and then the way that they connected it all back to the original story, again, it was fine. It was fine. I would put Furiosa very much on the level of Beetlejuice, spoiler alert, by the end of this. I'll put them very much on the same level where it's like, yeah, like I enjoy the story for what it is. It's fine. I don't think I necessarily needed it. And I definitely didn't ask for it. But at the end of the day, I guess that I'm okay with the fact that you did it. This was the first thing that kind of made me a believer in Anya Taylor-Joy. I'll say before I was not all that wowed with her, but I do think that she really showed some acting chops in this. Overall the story of like Furiosa, being from the Greenlands and then getting kidnapped and her mom getting killed and then getting her star map carved out of her and turned into this little war boy. Oh, I'll say that too. Let's go back real quick. In the middle of this movie, she becomes before she does this thing to her head, she becomes a war boy, and it's ridiculous. She spends, I think, 10 years of her life as a boy with a shaved head, as if Nobody would have ever noticed the growth of her tits. I'm sorry, but boys notice those things. Literally, trust me, like I can remember my good girlfriends who I never thought of as sexual things, but when you're a boy and you're friends with girls and they start to grow boobs, you notice it. And that's all I'm saying is the characters around her would have noticed the growth of her tits. That's not necessarily saying they would have sexualized her or anything like that, but they would have noticed and there would have been questions. So the whole movie falls apart. Don't go see it based on that. No, I'm completely kidding. This is probably on HBO. If you like Mad Max and you like that world, there's no reason to skip out on this movie. It's one of the tighter Mad Max. It's definitely not the worst one that they've ever made for sure. So yeah, see it for yourself, decide for yourself. Uh the third act is a little bit rushed and kind of like weird and clunky, but overall, I think I enjoyed this movie. Speaking of strong female protagonists, let's talk about Maxine. Now, sorry about that. Touch the mic. Come on, people. What is there not to like about this? Maxine. I'll admit, hat in hand. I went to go see this movie with a good friend, and neither of us realized that this was the third movie in a trilogy. I am familiar with Pearl. I'm familiar with X. I am just so goddamn dumb. I didn't even realize that these movies are all connected. But overall, I enjoyed Maxine. I would say Maxine is maybe even the best movie we've talked about so far as an original premise. It's maybe pretty close with Furiosa. You could kind of edge the two out for different reasons. Neither are something to write home about. The cast is probably the strongest aspect of this movie. Here, I'll kind of scoot myself aside here. Kevin Bacon is like our big bad dude, is like legitimately great. I mean, the dude always gives a good performance. I wasn't expecting Gus from Breaking Bad to be so great and such an important character in this movie. And then, of course, you've got that one dude in the top right corner from Boardwalk Empire who somehow seems to find his way into everything. I don't know, man. This guy just finds his way into everything. And her buddy from the video store. It was just her little video store buddy. But I did like him and the chick on the bottom right there as the cops. They were actually pretty enjoyable. The Maxine story overall was kind of cool because you had this whole subversion expectation. It's like hookers are being targeted by this serial killer. And then, of course, Maxine herself is a killer on multiple fronts. She ends up like taking Kevin Bacon, who's extorting her and crushing him in a car just because he's fucking with her. And Gus from Breaking Bad helps her accomplish that. So it's like, all right, nice. We're down with that. But overall, man, I definitely liked it. It was a fun movie. It had some weird moments. Again, there were some things I didn't always totally understand in the third act, but once I got home and immediately realized it was the third movie in a trilogy, I said to myself, well, you know what? There's a pretty good reason that I maybe didn't understand that at the time. So I would recommend Maxine. I would say go see the other two movies first. I went back and saw X, saw Pearl. That could be a whole different review itself. But go see those before you go see Maxine. But interestingly enough, on its own, it held up good enough. It explains the random solo people that me and my buddy saw going to see this movie. I did think that to myself. I was like, there's a lot of people going to see this movie all by themselves. Why? Well, because it's the third movie in a trilogy and they actually had friends when they started to watch it. And I guess now they're all alone. But overall, I'd say go see Maxine. Another movie that I would say that I don't maybe go and see if you really feel like mostly if it's free and available to you at this point on demand is Twisters. For a movie called Twisters, there's remarkably few Twisters moments. There's literally one scene where there's like dual Twisters, and the two protagonists and antagonists just split up, and one of the Twisters dies out. It's not like they combine and become one big awesome dual twister. Nope. Just one dies and the other one becomes a little bit bigger. No worries there. Twisters, man. This is another movie that it's getting a lot of praise. I don't totally understand it. It's not necessarily a great movie. It's not necessarily a bad movie. Now, I guess what I'm trying to say, people, is just because a movie isn't woke doesn't mean it's good. Twisters, much like Furiosa, is a completely unnecessary addition to a story that wasn't really asking for the addition in the first place. Now, that being said, two characters you have up on the top of the screen, the two main characters, I actually kind of enjoyed them. There's a little bit of a subversion of expectations. So, Twisters, of course, little sequel to Twisters. You're still dealing with Twisters. Main character, pouty chick, gets into an incident in the beginning of the movie, gets her friends killed. Her one friend, who's like a scientist, monitor, business type dude, survives along with her. And years later, he contacts her to help her with tracking more. You guessed it. Woo! Twisters. She very early on runs into main white dude from. Oh, let me move again over here. And main white dude suspiciously has a very diverse team of YouTubers. Now, this was when I knew in this movie that white dude, despite what normally white dude represents in most modern movies, wasn't actually going to be bad, because how could he be bad if he has such a diverse team of people? So he's got like his buddy over here on the far left, who I don't really know what he does on the team, but he's like a weather expert. So he's like a makeshift weather expert. The girl on with her hands on her knees is the drone pilot. There's like another dude in here who's kind of, I think it's the dude who's leaning over next to the dude with the hat. He drives the truck. And then I think the dude with the hat like runs the live streams or like uploads the videos. Yeah, so this is a little bit later on in the movie when you got our main chick all flipped over. But again, overall, I like this, I'm him. Overall, not such a bad story. You got kind of the shrew who is a failed scientist. She tried it once, then she lost confidence in herself. Then she meets the YouTuber team and she thinks lowly of them, even though she's hired by a legitimate company to look into these hurricanes years later. Sorry, hurricanes. It ain't that serious, bro. Tornadoes. So looking into these twisters years later, again, a little bit of a disappointment with the dual twisters. But she finds herself teaming up with the YouTubers over her corporate gig and her old buddy from the past. Now, most of the drama in this movie involves scenes like this where you're hanging on to a pipe very diligently. This is actually from the first Twister movie. So they just took that scene from the first Twister movie and decided to do it 3 times in this movie. But as you'll see here, man, there's a pretty good reason to hold on to that pipe, dude. That Twister is not playing. And look at her, man. She is getting sucked away. I'm sure that was not the only like sucking away that happened at the end of this movie. But overall, Twisters, really hokey, really corny. It's kind of like a Hallmark movie in legitimate Hollywood film form. So yeah, basically a Hallmark movie. The girl who had big dreams but went to the city and kind of sold herself out, comes back home to her small town and meets a man who, despite the fact that he's not quite what she's looking for, he has exactly what she needs. Now, I'm sorry, people, but did I not just describe a Hallmark movie perfectly? Speaking of classic romances that Hallmarks present, we have Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't have a lot to say about this movie. It was fine. Again, you know what? I'll say, not again. Unlike most of these sequels or prequels that we've reviewed so far, one that I actually thought was a welcomed addition to the trilogy that it exists within. I personally really enjoyed Deadpool and Wolverine. Thought it was a fun team up buddy cop movie. I didn't think it was great, man. I thought the first Deadpool movie is genius. Like, here's one to that, seriously, take a drink, take a smoke at home. That movie's incredible. Uh, the second one kind of suffers a little bit from repeating the first one a lot. The third one, at least, takes it in a totally different direction. Spoiler alerts. Let's not lie. The team up cameo, man, in this movie, everything you ever asked for, dude. Wolverine, Blade, Gambit, X-23. We could leave her at home if we really wanted to, or replace her with someone else, but that's fine. Deadpool and Elektra. Elektra was honestly the one that I wasn't really expecting, but really enjoyed being able to see back of this dude and being able to see her kill people and just kind of tear things up. I'll say, like, maybe the one thing that's kind of a downside to this whole, like, massive, awesome team up that we weren't expecting that we did get to see is the fact that for whatever reason, Deadpool's old gang here has just gone completely missing. You don't see any of these three individuals in this shot, these four individuals in this shot, in the other movies. So I don't know, they're just gone. And even the first characters, man, Colossus and Mega Sonic Teenage Warhead, not really in this one. So maybe I'm just being nostalgic, maybe I'm just being a purist, but I do think it's kind of a shame that they weren't able to include them. But I did really enjoy the villain. Cassandra Nova, I thought was a really solid villain. I like this actor. I'm respectful, people. Look at me. Look at it. Even if you don't want to look at it, look at it. I'm respectful, man. Don't let a red hat fool you. I'm respectful. They are quite the good actor, and I quite enjoyed them as the main villain, and even more so, Tom from Succession killing it in this movie as our side villain. This was everything that Ant-Man and the Wasp got wrong with Walter Goggins, where you were like, Walter Goggins is a great actor. I really love him and stuff, but why the fuck do I hate him in Ant-Man and the Wasp? Well, I'll tell you what, because it wasn't handled as well as Tom from Succession was in Deadpool Wolverine. From Deadpool and Wolverine, we move on to the spooky season with Alien Romulus. Now, you see a poster like this, and you think to yourself, oh my God, I am in for a treat. Well, let me tell you, man, this movie is kind of a treat. For the first third or so, I'll tell you, man, I don't know what they were thinking with this thing. So, Alien Romulus is about a group of teens. They're sort of teens. They're like teens and people in their 20s who decide to go up on a Wayland, industry, the dudes who run everything in Alien World, spaceship. And that sounds very promising. I like the team of individuals that go up. They're kind of basic, but they have their own quirks. We got Andrew. His name could have been Andrew. Android black dude who was very interesting. He was kind of retarded in the beginning of the movie, and then they inserted him with a chip and made him not retarded, which made him an asshole, and then they made him retarded again. It's a good character arc. We have, once again, from Civil War, our Elliot Page female version in Kaylee Spaney as the new Ripley. But again, this crew was actually pretty solid. I did genuinely enjoy seeing them in this movie. They played well together. They're like a fun little crew. You got like little prejudices, little things that make you think, oh, they're not going to be able to get along. Can they accomplish their mission? The setting itself is very cool. You're up on this space station again. We'll kind of jump up here, show you. You're up on the space station. They're slowly crashing down into whatever the rock rings of a planet are called. They're slowly crashing down into theirs. And there's aliens, man. Really well designed aliens, I'll say. I'm gonna shit on this movie a little bit more, but the aliens and their design in Alien Romulus really solid. So once the movie actually starts going, once people actually start getting face huggers laid on their face, once shit really starts to hit the fan, that's when you're kind of like, I don't know. I'm starting to fall out of love with this movie. Where I really lost it with this movie was when we had Kaylee Spaney shooting the aliens and creating a spiral type acid blood maze for them to have to navigate through. So, well, there's a couple tense scenes with her. Overall, they really kind of lame it up with this scene where she just shoots all the aliens and they proceed to navigate through the acid. Like, okay, you're not at all worried about the acid coming through. One thing I did kind of like about the movie was the addition of this freaky ass thing. The Offspring is what it's called. Hey, come out and play. The Offspring was kind of cool. There was sort of an uncanny valley thing going on with it. I did enjoy it's it's unisex type of look, the triangular hole that it had for genitals. It's completely ridiculous, man. That thing was so freaking retarded. And speaking of retarded with this movie, we of course have the addition of the robot from the first Alien movie. No reason for him. He could easily have been a different type of robot. I thought it would have been cool if the black dude, if it was just a different version of him that was like intelligent and like, put together and stuff like that, but he's physically deformed. And then you have the other character. I'm sorry, I don't know any of the characters' names in this movie, which I'm sorry, is a slight on them. If it really mattered, I would remember. I still remember the characters' names from Tremors, so the fact that I don't remember their names after having seen this only like a month ago is definitely an indictment on them. I take no responsibility for it. But imagine if he was mentally impaired but physically put together, and then there was another version of him that was physically impaired but mentally put together, and that was more the dynamic that they went for instead of this cheap thrills BS. Well, you know what? That's just what they decided to go with. It's not the worst idea in the world. Overall, again, Alien Romulus is one of those movies that if it's available to you, if it's free, if it's like Halloween, you're just looking for something and you like the Alien movies, check it out. Otherwise, skip it. There's no reason to check it out. Now, one movie that there's no reason to ever check out is Trap. We're, in case you couldn't tell here, we're showing some support for Deadpool Wolverine, but we are in Philadelphia, and our main dude is M. Night Shyamalan when it comes to directors. Unfortunately, he's a little hit or miss. Trap was a miss. Trap, the compelling story about Josh Hartnett, a serial killer stuck in a concert venue for a pop star where he is the target because he's taking his daughter to see his favorite pop star. Super shitty, really lame. I won't even waste your time by talking about it for too long. All you need to know is that it's full of a lot of conveniences. It's not very well written. It's very nepotistic. It's a very nepotistic movie that heavily focuses on M. Night's daughter being awesome. She eventually becomes the star of the movie, inexplicably, sort of. It's insane. But what I will say is the big shame of this movie is Josh Hartnett is really, really good as a serial killer. You will watch this movie and you'll go, why the hell did they waste Josh Hartnett as a serial killer in this movie? He would have been so much better in like a million other things. Well, you're just going to have to live with it. The same way we're all going to have to live with our final movie of the night, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. The juice is loose. So, to give a little preface of my background with this movie, of course, people have always kind of talked about, oh, Beetlejuice is a movie they could do a sequel of. Well, like every other sequel this summer, Twisters, prequel style Furiosa, God, even Deadpool and Wolverine to a certain extent. It's just a sequel where you go, okay, That's fine, but does it really add a whole lot to the story? Deadpool Wolverine's a little bit of a different story here. But with Beetlejuice, you, you just kind of find yourself going, huh, wow. Sort of like this AI art of Beetlejuice. This, I don't even know what this isn't what the characters look like at all in the movie. And it must be completely AI because this isn't what Winona Ryder or Michael Keaton look like in the movie. Uh, but there's a whole lot of new characters added. Whether they're all good, it remains to be seen. The corpse bride here in the top left, very great intro. A lot of promise, no payoff. The fiance character to Lydia here, right next to the corpse bride on our right. Totally pointless. No need for this guy. Lydia is completely different than she was in the first movie, and that's kind of on purpose, but I don't think it plays to the character's strengths. And Astrid, as Jenna Ortega, played by Jenna Ortega, is you know, she's great and she's there, but you're kind of like, okay, I don't really care about her little storyline with the dead ghost boy. Willem Dafoe feels completely pushed in this movie. It feels like there's literally no reason for him to be there, except for the fact that I guess Tim Burton always wanted to make him Two Face in one of his Batman movies, and this is kind of his way of replaying that. And of course, you have Bob and the rest of Beetlejuice's little assistants who were interesting, but their whole escaping thing never really amounted to anything, and neither did Beetlejuice with his corpse bride. So, you have some nice little reunion moments in the movie with Beetlejuice and Lydia, and some bits in the movie that land and are funny. They made me chuckle. There was a few that made me laugh. Even some of the characters that I'm complaining about, I'm like, I don't know if this character needed to necessarily be in it. Like the fiance, for example. Like, is it like I get why he's in there, and there's that whole storyline with the dead dad and Lydia's ex, and it's Astrid's dad, but like, does he really need to be there? Because you maybe just be dealing with like the death of the ex as its own thing. I don't know. I don't know. But what it does feel like is that there's an awful lot going on in this movie. Despite that, though, the fiance manipulative guy gave me one of my biggest laughs of the movie when he told those kids that nobody likes a big fat clown. That's absolutely true. I do wonder, and I'm really not sure. I don't even know what Tim Burton had to do with the cartoon, but if there was moments in this movie that were references to the cartoon, which I never watched. They mentioned how the sandworms are on one of the moons of Saturn. I have no idea what that's all about, but it seemed like something that was maybe from the cartoons, if it's from anything. Again, overall, great cast. Fun sets, man. I enjoyed, seeing Beetlejuice back in the afterlife. I enjoyed the sets, the actual set pieces, but just a lot of things going on in this movie, in particular, like Lydia with her ghost boyfriend, Willem Dafoe with half a face, being funny, but not necessarily needing to be there and basically serving no purpose. And of course, the Corpse Bride band, who had a great intro. And then from there, just kind of faded out into nothingness. It's just one of those movies. There's a whole lot going on, but you don't really know if it really amounts to anything. And that's all the movies that we saw this summer. So from April all the way back to Civil War, and then all the way back up to Beetlejuice with unnecessary characters like Willem Dafoe's. This is what we saw. This is what we thought of it. Did you think the same thing? Did you get through at least 2 beers during this transmission of information? I hope you did. Again, I'm Blunt Plunk. I won't ever lie to you. I just might not know what I'm talking about. And if you disagree with me, feel free to express so in the comments. Real quick, the big giveaway today. If you made it this far in the video, we got a big giveaway. you have the opportunity to win one of a kind Bill Cosby himself stand up. So I know he's canceled. I know he's not really reflected on favorably, but trust me, people, this is a stand up special that you won't ever see anywhere else. It might legitimately be worth money. I'm not trying to tempt you or anything, but just comment below. Let me know your username and I'll get you involved in the contest to get you winning that prize. It's Friday. I was at the bar before this and we were just sitting down, just shooting the shit here, sharing some opinions on movies. So we're going to keep going with it. And until next time, take care. And
Hey, stop being woke. Okay?
Stop being woke.
don't go woke.